Everybody to a new edition of Esports Weekly. I'm Ryan Bailey. I'll be your host as per usual. And thank you so much for tuning in as we get back towards the back half of this phase. And as a result, we're nearly ready to qualify other teams for the Smite World Championships. I think now would be a good time because last week's episode was all about PK, all this roster drama, what was going on there. And we listened to everyone else, but I didn't get a chance to really talk about it. And that's what I wanted to open up today's show with. Look, this roster change for PK was weird. It caught a lot of people off guard, myself included. I mean, this was a team that was third seed at the time, since has moved up towards second seed, with Dignitas having a couple tough games. Why would they make roster changes? You know, it doesn't make any sense. But I think it really does, and I think it speaks to the maturity of the Smite scene and understanding what the end goal is here. No longer is the end goal third or second seed. You know, just being a good team in the SPL really isn't enough anymore. It's really looking towards the Smite World Championships. Can this team win a championship? That is the question that every single team in the SPL has to be able to look into the mirror and ask themselves every single week. And PK, when they looked in the mirror and looked internally at what was going on with that team, decided that they likely could not win Worlds as currently constructed. Now, the new roster and where the direction it's gone, Deathwalker to mid, Row being picked up for solo lane with Zeros being removed, does that team have a better chance of winning the Smite World Championships? We don't know. I think that's the big key. We don't know. Now, on paper, are they better? Absolutely not. Row is an unproven talent at the SPL level, though Row did have a very successful career for an Australian player in his region, was on a top team over there, played consistently, came to LAN, did okay there. So you know Row's got talent, but that was a couple of years ago. And I don't know. I just think that if you're a PK player, put yourself in their shoes. That team, what they had, those 5 players with Row coaching, that was a known quantity. They knew what the potential was. They knew what that team was capable of. And they decided that was not good enough. So if the answer is already no, think back a couple weeks ago. I was talking about your chances are binary. You either have a chance at the Smite World Championship or you don't. That's the big difference maker. I was talking about that in regards to a team like Space Station Gaming, where maybe they aren't doing so well right now, but ultimately their goal is to be a yes in the column. Can we win a Smite World Championship? So if you're on PK and you decide, hey, we are a current no as currently constructed, what is the worst thing that happens by making this change? We don't know if it's going to be any better. We can't. Their first game is this week. We're going to open the show talking to John Finch about their chances. But we have an unknown quantity now. The answer could be yes. And that's the big key for PK. Are they going to be better right away? Almost certainly not. But could they win a Smite World Championship? That remains to be seen. We'll get a quick preview this week as they're going to take on a Luminosity team that is going to be really, really tough. I'm excited for that matchup. We're going to be talking to both ends of those correspondents to make sure we have that matchup all previewed for you, because I think it's going to be the best one of the entire week. Let's take a look at the schedule so you can see what's going on. This is what happened in Week 9. Dignitas, as I mentioned, a tough week for them. I don't know which loss is worse. That's the thing, man. Maybe I should have talked about Dignitas in the monologue, because I got a lot to say about this one, too. I don't know which loss is worse. The 3-2 against Obey Alliance, the 9th team in the SPL right now, and it hasn't been particularly close for that squad. And then you get 3-2'd by them, and then you get swept by SK Gaming, man. I don't know. That hurts, Dignitas. I think that team is in a really bad spot right now, and they've got to try and figure something out. They are already qualified for High Rise Expo. They will not be going to the placement week. The only team that has a chance to slip in is SK Gaming, and that would require Splice to lose a couple games. It's not looking likely. Splice is looking pretty good, but so is SK. If SK doesn't make it out of placements, man, I don't know. I'd be shocked. That team is looking really, really good right now. But there's going to be a lot of strong teams there. It's going to be fun. That's why they play the games. Last year's roster, then Trifecta, same 5 guys, did awfully well in that sort of environment. After losing the first round that we don't want to bring up. You know, we don't really want to talk about that one. Week 10, it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you're tuned in for that. If you didn't check in on Week 9, however, you may have missed out on some of the best plays of the week, and we're going to go over those right now with your Respawn top 5 plays. We're going to kick it off with number 5. This one coming from the PS4 League, PS4 EU. Distortion, hey, don't mind if I do. Walks right in, snatches it away. What does this sheet say? Oh, zone on objectives. Wait, this note is really old. That's from season 1. Oh, that's when we learned that lesson. That's all right. We're still working on it. Now, number 4, it's time to move on to Team Dignitas and their set up against SK. Did not go super well for them, and this is why. Dignitas diving head first into the shallow end. This is good work by John Finch. He's the one who provided us with some great, nice little captions here today. Belair able to juke out 2 people underneath the tower and clean up 1. That's what I knew it was not going to be a good day for Team Dignitas. We knew right then and right there. Unless you looked at Heroine's play, which is going to clock in at number 3. This one was against Obey, I believe. Or yes, it was. This was the first game, and you thought this is going to go really well for Dignitas. This is the exact set that you thought was going to end up happening. Heroine surviving forever against a bunch of people. Don't give this guy Persephone. They eventually kill him, but they lose everybody in the process. 3 people required to kill Heroine. Everyone off the board. Persephone, good. Ban the character. Or, if you're on a team that doesn't know how to play Persephone yet, stop watching the show. Actually, wait, don't. Watch the rest of the show, and then immediately go and play nothing but Persephone because you're doing your team a disservice. Number 2, oh, Finch, I can't stand behind this one. I cannot stand behind this caption, man. I refuse to read it out loud. Who would ever write this, man? You are calling down the wrath of Baskin upon you. Solo Patrol makes a nice play. It looks really good. Baskin who? The GOAT! What do you mean? You cannot be... I will not stand for Baskin slander on this show ever. Finch is fired, man. No more caption writing for him. I can't believe this. What did you even write for number 1? I don't... whatever. Number 1 play. Who knows what this means? Tyler, everyone back in production, who let this on the show, man? Alex, Extreme Man, you let him label that? What is wrong with you guys? Yeah, Spudio gets a whole bunch of kills. He gets a triple. He gets a quadra. He gets another triple. This caption's really not that bad, but I'm still angry about the last one. Unbelievable, man. You can't be giving me good captions like this, Finch, and then throwing Baskin under the bus, dude. I don't understand. What is... I can't believe I'm flustered. My whole day down the tubes, man. I was on a roll today. I did a roll queue earlier. I did patch notes. I'm coming in hot for Esports Weekly, ready to go. And then what do I see on my sheet? Baskin who? Are you kidding me? What a disgrace. Spudio's really good at the game. Out Cold Gaming might actually qualify for LAN. It's a big story. We'll talk about SML towards the back end of the show. I'm in shambles. What? Unbelievable. And John Finch is next on the show. Oh, man. I hope you didn't want to hear about PK, because it's going to be all about talking about why Baskin deserves respect in this house, man. Unbelievable. Week 10 schedule on your screen right now. LG going to kick us off against PK tomorrow at 11 a.m. Rival with a doubleheader. They face off against SK on Thursday. Then Friday, a light lunch. Just one game at 1 p.m. Rival versus LG. If LG comes in hot, maybe beat PK on Thursday, get a little bit of momentum. Might be able to give Rival a couple of problems, especially considering Rival, I believe, locks up top seed as long as they beat SK Gaming on Thursday. So maybe Rival goes in a little bit experimental, not needing to find the victory, but instead trying to make sure they know exactly what they might be playing come HRX, because they will indeed be going, no matter if they're the first seed or not. Stay tuned. We will harass and berate John Finch right on the other side.
Players are here, the stage is set. Let's get down for Esports!
This is where we also talk about the new stuff that we've got coming out for you all.
HRX is literally my favorite time of year. It truly isn't close. This is what I live for.
If that's second place, I can't wait to see what first place is.
It's HRX.
Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. Now joining the show, we have PK correspondent and the worst lower third writer in the business. It's John Finch. John, consider yourself on trial. You are charged with disrespecting Baskin. How do you plead?
Guilty. I did it. Because Solo Troll's been popping. You don't need Basket anymore when you got SOT. You saw the clip? That hammer kill was nuts, dude.
Yeah, SOT's been playing really well. This is Baskin,
He's probably the best player that we've ever had individually at any given point.
And you wrote
and multiple different roles.
And you wrote
who needs him?
Baskin who on
I got
the
exactly
sheet of
the
paper.
reaction out of this guy that I wanted. He's playing into my hands.
What's crazy to me is that you said those words out loud.
I sure did.
And then Extreme Man typed them in.
He sure did.
And then you forced Jennifer to type those in.
Oh, that I feel bad about. Sorry, Jennifer.
You implicated multiple people in this. This is going to be a big...
There's a huge Knight story. Can we talk about the Knights?
Yeah,
Come on.
just what Rose in the solo lane.
Did
Go
you see
ahead.
what I wrote for this?
Oh, my God, bro.
I love it, dude. Row
that's it.
your boat to
I'm
Worlds.
no longer recording row queues on Wednesdays because normally that is my prep time for this, and you have been let to roam free, and I cannot be having it.
This is great. We have a great day in store for you all. I did one for Rival later on. It won't be as good. I'm sorry about that. But these wins are really good, and I did have a chance to talk to Row, for whom this title is named after, with the coach who's stepping in here for the Knights into that mid-roll to try and replace Zeros. And surprisingly, I was kind of expecting a somewhat somber, kind of muted response as the realities of trying to mid and SPL level kind of came home for Row, but they seem pretty pumped, actually, about the expectations for the team. He did tell me they were realistic. They don't expect to come out of the gate swinging right away and be the same strength they were, obviously, but it sounds to me like this team's goals are Worlds. They're already qualified. They don't need to win any more games this split, or this phase, rather, to improve. They're setting their sights on Worlds, and they really do think they have a chance to win.
I mean, the big thing for me is that seeding is going to be massive. I mean, you have the top end. This is a team that has a chance at top 2.
Yeah.
But they need to play really well towards the back half. The difference between being second seed and playing against a team that had to come up through placements, you had to watch them play a whole tournament. You've been able to rest. Other than playing, I don't know, Splice or Renegades or EU United first. I mean, that's a huge deal.
And I think that what happened, the calculus of this team was the difference between maybe getting second seed and having no chance when you get there, or maybe coming in as fifth seed but feeling like you're on a team that actually has a shot. And what Rose told me, that this team is communicating better. There's not the arguments that they had before. Instead, it's all constructive criticism. Some of this, I think, is probably the honeymoon phase of being with a new team, but
Absolutely.
I do also think that there's a chance that Rowe is someone who's going to be able to cooperate with the team more, do the things that they need, and communicate maybe a little bit more effectively than what they had in that slot before. And that's what it sounds like so far from me, at least from what I've been able to hear from them, that they're looking better than they're expecting, and that they're able to make the adjustments they need to make.
Okay, so as I kind of highlighted at the top of the show, Rowe comes in as the coach, but he's not a guy with no competitive experience. He played for a long time in Australia.
You're exactly right. And that's one of the things I asked him. I was like, Rowe, what's it like for you now in the game? It's a lot different. And he surprised me. He said he's actually found it easier in some ways than coaching this team. There's Rowe. He was with us at Worlds once before on the stage. You're exactly right. He's no stranger. But he said that, at some times, excuse me, he had some troubles with the coaching, maybe not having everyone maybe listen the way that they wanted. But he feels like now that he's back here on the field, he knows what his role is. He'll be over there in the solo lane. He's been able to kind of learn a little bit more than what he might have expected. I think that he actually was a bit surprised at how it wasn't as hard as he might have thought.
This old LG Dia Wolves, so back in the day, the Australian representatives, they were here all the time and had some clean jackets, I might add.
They did.
That was a big part of this
looks.
team. I mean, he was considered really the star of that squad, if my memory serves me properly. He was the guy in the jungle that a lot of people were looking at. They had a bunch of really good performances. This one was the big one at Super Regionals one year. I believe this was season 3, where they nearly beat Energy.
Nearly.
They got really close. He's the first Australian SPL player.
Okay.
he will almost certainly eventually get Australia's first SPL win.
Yes, very almost certainly likely. And I think that could happen here in their next set right here up against LG. I asked him about the set in particular, and they said they actually feel pretty confident. I don't think the Knights are looking past it. That's not the right word. I asked him about it. He said we're confident towards it, but we don't think that we have to win it. You know, we don't need this win necessarily. So the way that I would describe it is that this is a team that is preparing for it. They expect to come out and win, but if they don't, it's certainly not going to be the end of the world. They're not going to let that kind of break this honeymoon high that they're on right now.
I mean, Xaylia, his lane opponent in this game, one that not necessarily the most dominant of solo laners, but has been playing better as of late.
Agreed.
Are you more worried about Ro against Xaylia or Deathwalker against Snoopy?
I do think that this Deathwalker against Snoopy one's actually a pretty big deal. I don't know why, man, but people seem to be not giving my man Snoop enough credit. He's very, very good at Smite.
Yeah.
And when he was in the Hunter role, in the conversation for one of the best at that position, he's made this adjustment here in mid, I would say, quite quickly. This is a good benchmark for the Knights. Obviously, LG are not the top end, but they're not the bottom. We'll get a chance to see where exactly is the Knights are standing, I think.
Now, I do have some breaking news to report about Luminosity. Hopefully, Ionic will be able to recover, as I recently did beat him in Mario Power Tennis.
Oh, that's
a
brutal.
Devastating loss for him.
Good luck with him. This is a free win for the Knights, then. Good luck, Ro, coming into a nice, easy one.
I really just did Hindu Man's job for him on the LG correspondence segment. That is the biggest story of this team by far as of late. Finch, thank you very much, and never read a lower third as long as you live.
I'll keep writing great ones.
We'll go to break right now as we get ready to bring in Hindu Man, who could tell us a little bit more detail about Ionic's heartbreaking loss to me in Mario Tennis.
What's up, guys? Titan Isaiah here, and I've got some huge news. Cross-platform play for Smite is coming to PlayStation 4. Starting with the Odyssey Underworld update, PS4 players will be able to play with and against players from across all Smite platforms. At launch, cross-progression and cross-monetization will not be supported. We're still working with our friends over at Sony on this, and we'll be sure to provide more updates in the future. This is a huge milestone for Smite, and we can't wait to welcome PS4 players into our cross-play family. For more information, head over to highresstudios.com/crossplay. We'll see you on the battleground.
Hunter reporting in. Specimen acquired. I don't know why you put such a high price on these things. They barely put up a fight. I'm en route to the drop point for payment and transfer. I want these things off my ship. I don't trust a job this easy. Hunter over and out. Don't keep me waiting.
Welcome back, everybody. Luminosity with a big doubleheader this week, not only against the new-look Pittsburgh Knights, but also against team rival on Friday. We've got Graham Hindu Man Hadfield, of course, the correspondent for LG, joining us here in studio.
Big doubleheader?
Big doubleheader.
Easy stomp and then a good game. That's what I'm expecting.
That's what you really think? That's how it's going to go?
Honestly, it should. I mean, it's the Knights roster, right? They've just made the roster changes. They've had this team together less than a week.
Yeah, but they've got Adapting and Deathwalker and Emilzy and Vote still. I mean, that's a lot of talent.
And Deathwalker not in his role anymore. And then a new solo laner too. That was a coach that hasn't, no offense, but like Australia hasn't done much in the past. May have done well at the coaching gig. I'm not so sure about this. Big week for LG.
It is. I mean, this is a big measuring stick week for LG, kind of test week, so to speak. But this, I mean, you are testing out of your league, I feel like, at this rate, right? I mean, this is, if they're able to win, especially both of these, but if you win even one of these, I think if you're LG, you've got to feel like you're ahead of schedule.
And that's the real plan. First of all, they need to break both these games down. First of all, Knights, day one, Thursday. Friday is going to be up against Rival. But against the Knights, what they really need to be doing is trying to make sure they take the free win, because it should be a free win. They need Xaylia to just be destroying Ro in that solo lane. If they can force Adapting to be trying to babysit Ro all day in that solo lane, windows of opportunity are going to open up around the goal for you, around the middle area, and that's where Deathwalker becomes exposed too. And when you talk about Deathwalker, I'm expecting Lasbra and Snoopy, some of these replays you can see on screen. I need them focusing mid lane all day long here. Give him a warm welcome. His name's Deathwalker. Make his name mean something different to him. He will be walking back from base after death consistently.
Very different than solo lane. That's for sure in the mid lane these days.
I think there's a real opportunity for LG to really show they've got the ability to take on tougher opposition. PK are going to be a stepping stone for them. They can't lose this set. They should be winning the set on paper, and they'd be very upset, I think, if they did lose this.
So you think they're the favorite here?
I think they should be. I think they really should be. Funny enough, I actually did change last minute. I don't even tell production that I did put Knights down and then changed my mind. I went, wait, I do think LG on paper have a better squad now, and that's no disservice to this squad at all in terms of what Knights have. have. Problem is that, bringing a coach into the solo lane that's not played competitively for a while, and then having a solo lane and move to mid lane, it's not as clear-cut and easy as people think it is. How many people have we seen go mid, Ryan?
A lot. We've seen a lot of people
How
go
many
mid.
have survived?
Not quite as many.
No, it's mainly the supports that have done that and survived.
Yeah.
The solo lane people that have done that have either petered off or ended up back in the solo lane.
Baskin did play mid and played it very well, but he's back in solo, as you mentioned.
And then that's Baskin.
That's Baskin.
But who's he, right?
He's Baskin, guys. I mean, who am I working with here, man? I don't understand. It did get in. LG is your pick.
Thanks, production.
John Finch there alongside you, but the other casters split down the middle. I think this one is going to be a lot of fun, man. I think this could be very close.
It really will, but the real focus should be Zaylia should be dominating this solo lane. I want him on a pressure gods in multiple roles here from LG's point of view. They need to be having Deathwalker focus on the mid lane, constant ganks from Snoopy, onto Snoopy from Lasbra, and with the pressure from Snoopy he's going to bring in that area would be great. Try and make sure Deathwalker feels really uncomfortable. Try and catch him out of position as often as possible. And if the pressure for Zaylia is there, if he starts to get a good advantage against Rogue consistently, it's going to force adapting over there. And if that happens, it's going to open the map up for them.
I think this is a big week for Luminosity. This is the game that you feel like they have more of a shot in, because their next game on Friday against Rival is a tough matchup, man. I mean,
it is.
But if you feel like they're a favorite against PK, even with PK certainly being more of a question mark than they used to be, then this tells me that you must think this set is likely to be close.
What, between Rival and...
Yeah, LG.
I think this one's going to really come down to it, and I'm starting to turn my correspondence now, instead of me just saying, this is what the guys say, what I think they really need to do, and if I'm all honest, and in that Rival set, focus Arkil. I think Arkil there's a crack in the armor of Rival, and it's kind of been shown in that dual lane position. There's a bit of a window there where you can definitely get baited into having some odd fights or going a little bit too aggressive. Start to pressure that area a little bit more. Have quicker rotations from mid. You've got Snoopy in the mid lane position, the Chernobog picks available. Have these rotations and pressure. With Joshy sitting there in that dual lane, he's happy to scrap when he needs to. Sure. He's been against other Europeans before, so he knows how to handle it. The main thing is try and hide as much as possible against Knights, first of all, to make sure they've got stuff saved for this Rival set.
But I think they do have to be still focused on that placement week. Do you think this is a team that should be considered favorites to make it to the Smite World Championships?
Realistically, I think every single pro team that's going to go to that placement, we could definitely a favorite above the minor league teams and console teams. It's just realistic to how the state of affairs are. I do think LG do have a shot at it. It really is going to depend on who else is going to be in that bracket with them and how the bracket plays out. There's only 2 spots, remember?
I know.
And if you think about, there's 10 pro league teams, 6 auto qualified. There's 4 teams in the pro league that are going to that lower placement bracket. LG needs to put the work in this next couple of weeks, make sure they're ramped ready for it.
I won't ask you right now, but next week that LG has a correspondence segment, you'll be getting the question, are they making it to Worlds through placements, yes or no?
I've already been signed up. I can't leak scripts.
Well,
I'm
you're going to have to answer, man. I'm the boss around here. That's the Esports Weekly. I'm calling the shots.
I'll look to find out who Baskin is, too.
Yeah, well, we're going to break, man. I can't deal with this anymore. Get this man off my set. Stay tuned. Roll Q on the other side.
The darkness threatened to overcome our light. But a glimmer of hope escaped the shadows of the underworld. The messenger arrived here at the Ogun River, my home. I will not abandon those in need. The waters are patient and cleansing. My allies will know the strength of the tides, and our enemies will fear the flood.
Sports Weekly, everybody. If you guys haven't been watching on the SMITEPro YouTube, we've been doing a series called Roll Q, where I sit down with a bunch of players from the exact same role and talk about their pet peeves, their favorite metas, what they would change about the current meta, and maybe some balance changes they would make to their role, as well as describing each other's playstyle. It's a ton of fun, so make sure you're tuning into those. And we just recorded one this morning all about my people, the mid laners, is the next episode of Roll Q. Take a little sneak peek. We need to get all of these other people out of the mid lane, right? Like, does anyone like having 2 other people in lane with you?
No, that's boring.
No, sir.
No, leave me alone.
I'm not queuing Joust for a reason. You know what I mean? It feels like a Joust game. The Heroine is a little bit different for you. I guess we should start because you're playing long lane these days. Sometimes you defaulted back. I mean, do you still consider yourself by identity a mid laner?
Yeah, not too many spoils here, but I realize that dual lane is actually worse sometimes. I know that I know you guys won't agree on that, but you spend a little bit of time there, you play against the right teams, Splice and SK, and then you'll realize that lane actually kind of sucks sometimes too. And then the problem might actually be me. But yeah, so yeah, no, I agree. Just me in the mid lane. Leave me alone.
Okay.
Solo farm, please.
Yeah, I mean, this meta right now, it's really, I think its identity is we're triple splitting all the time, and we're playing not mages. I mean, is this a meta that you guys seem to enjoy? I mean, I know a lot of you guys are winning a good amount, but I feel like as a player, I'm not loving it quite as much.
Definitely the least fun meta there, I think, of all the seasons ever. I'm pretty sure it's the least fun. I think just jamming mid pressure is got to be really boring and not like entertaining to watch. I mean, maybe it's entertaining. I don't know. To play, it's not that fun.
I mean, mid pressure's always been important though, right? But what makes it so different this season?
I feel like the catch up mechanic is really hard to do in mid, because if the other team's like jamming you 3v3 and you're always 3-man splitting, you're not catching up as any like a mage or anything like that. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I also think it's too one-dimensional. Like the first phase I played mid, you could play like all the mages, and sure, some mages were better at mid pressure, but you could still get it with others. But now it's like you either play hunters or you just lose the pressure. So mages can't give you pressure anymore. So it's just too one-dimensional for me. It's not fun. And then, you know, if you try to play mage, you just get dove and you die. It's just that.
I mean, there's very few gods that can contest with hunter pressure right now. So in the mage god pool, you're very limited with what you can pick. So it's just always bad to go hunters, is why contest.
Yeah. What makes it different in your mind, Harry, from previous seasons where mid pressure was also important?
I just think it's kind of the cycle of life as well, in a way. I don't think it was always this way in EU, but we always had our phases of mid hunters for like as far back as I can remember.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an inevitable conclusion. When people start getting frustrated with pressure, they say just stick the hunter in mid lane. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, so what's the answer here? Are we just nerfing hunters across the board or buffing mages? If you guys could make one balance change right now to your role, what do you think you would do?
Bring back old Rod of Tootie.
Then I don't think that helps the problem. You get your level 12 and you're saving for a 3K gold item to make yourself a character.
You never know, dude. Just rush it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, that's the heroine special.
That's the heroine special. Yeah. Zeus first item rod.
That's right. All right, that is good. That's the thing.
That's good. I don't know. I brought it up earlier, but I think bringing back old purple buff would help mages going back to mid. And then if it's mage versus mage, the matchup becomes a lot less frustrating in terms of like just getting ran at with auto attack. So I think if they brought back old purple buff,
the attack speed buff.
The attack speed buff, that'd bring hunters back into dual lane because mages can't utilize it very well. And then it'd be back to mage versus mage, which is a little bit different than hunter versus mage. So that's my fix.
As Sylvanas doesn't get the purple buffs.
That's true. Actually, it could bring back dual. I mean, no, I think it'd bring back
that's
hunters.
A good idea, honestly.
One thing is you could add like a mini boss on the side of the map, like adding a little addition, like a camp.
On the duo side?
Yeah. So like it would need to be contested by. So like if it was just like a mage versus mage, like no one's gonna ever get it. But like if you put two people there and like one person had to tank it, then they could like contest it and get it. And like it would be like valuable just to that lane. So it would be like a buff to that lane only. So like then it makes it like brings that back and it puts it away from mid lane.
Yeah,
brings back duo lane.
Yeah, exactly. So it brings that to the duo side of the map.
Yeah, I find it interesting that through the first two answers, we're not talking about any mage item buffs except for Ven. Like mage god buffs or anything like that. It's just get people out of my lane by sending them elsewhere.
Yeah.
Tings, how about for you?
I think there's a few gods that could be doing with some buffs in the mage god pool. You know, Discordia. Just want to throw out there.
Wait, you want a Discordia buff, man? I
Maybe.
can't believe it.
No, there's a few others that are definitely needing some assistance in their base damage increases and stuff like that. But I do think generally the problem needs to be solved with a map change, where Panda brought up the attack speed buff or Ven said something in the duo lane. I think buffing and nerfing gods and buffing and nerfing items is going to be a lot harder and maybe more problematic in the end of it, rather than just changing something to do with the map and shifting some of that pressure elsewhere, maybe in duo lane, something like that.
Makes sense to me. Harry, you guys want to see a little bit more of Roll Q, it'll be debuting this weekend on the SMITEPro YouTube. You can also follow at SMITEPro on Twitter, and they'll be tweeting out all that live stuff, usually in the morning on Saturday morning, and make sure you tune in as soon as you can. Also have a bunch of old ones on there, and we've got the rest of the year planned out basically for Roll Q. It's going to be a good time, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. Stay tuned, though, here for Esports Weekly. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. SK Gaming had a big week last week, able to find a very important win over Team Dignitas and ultimately keep their dreams alive for making it to the auto qualifier for High Res Expo. We've got their correspondent, Tom Baddinger, here in studio. Oh, what? Just because October, you get to spook us? All right, fair enough. Tom, they're still alive. Almost certainly not going to make it automatically. They've got to get through Splice and a couple other teams.
Says you.
Yeah, who else would be saying it? I'm the one speaking the words.
Well, maybe it's Kronos.
Wow. Your break did you some good to put you in a mood immediately. Ooh. Let's assume SK Gaming is not going to make it automatically, and they will go to placement weeks.
We can assume.
We can assume that. Are these games still important to them, if that's the assumption?
These games, it's interesting. I didn't get a right yes or no. I'm like, hey, so you trying to win these games or what's that? And we're playing to win, but definitely more about what's going on behind the scenes. This team is dummy confident, and I think from what they've been kind of saying here is that they're just looking towards the end. From the sounds of it, if you want my inference, I think that these guys are looking at these games and going, they're important for us to practice how we perform. That's a big statement when you're talking about these high-end teams. Practice how we perform. It's more that it's just another level of practice for them, and they've been approaching all of it with the same level of fervor.
Sure. I think that that's a team that could really use it as well, because consistency has been the problem for this squad basically all year. But they looked consistently good last week against Dignitas, even though Dignitas certainly on the downtrend. You heard Neil Ma in the interview afterwards say he thinks they're slumping a little bit, but still didn't play horribly by any stretch. How big of a confidence booster was that for the squad?
You know, it's interesting. I think that independent of what was going on, it was a confidence booster, sure, but I think it's, again, what's been going on in the backside. If I can, talk about what these guys were saying, Zatman brought up something directly speaking to that level of confidence. He said, we've been having success in scrims, not just against the people that you would think, but some surprising strong teams. We went on the SPL stage, took games off of Renegade Splice and 3-0 and Dig. We're winning backstage, we're winning on stage, and it's been an all-out approach to the game. Like you said, consistency has been the issue. I've gotten up here and said, consistency. Which SK Gaming are we going to see? Please stop making my job miserable. I need to cover one team, not 7 of them, and SK are all 7. What the hell are you doing to me here? Realistically, this team went, all right, that's our issue. So if we approach every game from scrims to what they call kind of next level scrims, you kind of dial in to real SPL games, every game is approached the same way. Admittedly, their opponents in those scrims don't love that they're super tryharding, but for Zatman and Neil, they're like, listen, this is what we need to do to succeed. And like you said, it's been showing up. We saw it last week. So for what we've complained about, I love that this is the direction they're going in, and they seem to be fixing it.
Hard to argue with, man. Results are speaking for themselves as of late, but now is going to be the real test, I think, up against a very good team rival. This is kind of where they prove if they are that top of the bottom tier right now, the 4 that are not auto-qualifying to Worlds, or if they are just another one of those bottom 4 teams.
I think absolutely absolutely SK can win this one, but realistically speaking, Rival are just too damn hot. I think that if Rival weren't at that, right now I look at Renegade, Splice, and Rival as my top 3 hot potatoes, right? If they weren't in this conversation of people that could just win worlds at a moment's notice, I would say that SK are ready to pounce and take over. So outside of that extreme upper echelon, I'm looking at SK to be run-of-the-mill with the rest of them. Rival is a tall task, albeit accomplishable.
It's certainly one that they're going to have to learn how to win if they want to win worlds. And
yes.
If they are looking at that, then this is one where they've got to be competitive, I think. Does that start with Paul?
It's interesting that you ask that. I don't think it starts with Paul. I think it ends with Paul. Really, I think it starts with Scary D. And what I mean by that is, as when we look at Belair, he's the one that's been kind of struggling up until this point. Paul never really stood up, but was rarely getting stepped on. And that's a separate conversation than one that has been slumping and needing to be pushed up. So I think for Belair, that's where it starts. We look at the short side, especially knowing that Rival, the rest of the league, have their talents on that short side. You're going up against Fine OK. You better be aware and ready. Paul's position, and I mean, it kind of sounds crazy. Other people can step up. Sam can have a crazy game and shift the mid lane out of the conversation. Same thing with Zapman late game. You can shift Paul out of the conversation. Paul comes after, but Belair has to be on point. If that short side doesn't play well, SK doesn't play well.
And that's going to be tough, I think, against a team like Rival, where Fine OK has been playing very, very well over there. Is that where you're looking in this matchup in particular as well? Or we heard Hinduman earlier from LG side say maybe we just camp Arkill, see if we can get him to make some mistakes. Do you think you put some more pressure on the Zapman to be your performer, or are you still looking at Belair?
No, I'm looking at Belair and sort of that side of the map, but I'm going to shift back for the micro conversation. Macro, big pictures, SK needs to look at their short side and have the solo lane work out. Rival? This is a mid-jungle game you have to win. I'm looking at Sam and Paul to step up and take on Panda Cat and Twig, that is the largest piece of homework that I could give somebody, admittedly. But if Paul and Sam want to win versus Rival now, which, as you said, is foreshadowing into them winning it all in the future, that's what they have to do. If Sam and Paul can step up and step over the mid and jungle of Rival, not only do they win now, they win weeks ahead.
This is a game where I imagine Rival's feeling pretty amped up because PBM and Panda Cat on the other side for Team Rival. I don't think they're quick to forget what happened at last year's Smite World Championship where they got first rounded by this team. Now having the opportunity to get that first seed locked up by beating them, I imagine SK is getting the full strength.
Absolutely. And I got a chance to talk to Panda aside before, and he was just like, listen, SK is one of the harder teams to prepare for. They kind of bring everything out. You really don't know what to expect, not just quality-wise, but also approach to the game. And he doesn't care. He's going to be better than them. That's his approach. He says, listen, there's a lot of other teams that you've got to be creative for. Against SK Gaming, Rival just has to play their own game. So for SK, knowing that, that's an easier kind of look into, we have the 8-ball, or we have the curveball in our territory. So going back to it, got to look at that mid-jungle synergy and put Rival down where they've been successful.
Sam and Paul have been hot as of late, so I feel like it's a good start for SK, at least in this matchup. Tom, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And talking about SK Gaming. John Finch, notorious hater of greatness, coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.
Great lower thirds.
Welcome back to Esports Weekly. Team Rival right on the cusp of breaking into that first seed and securing it for the Smite World Championships. We've got John Finch in here. Finch, I'm really surprised you don't hate Rival because they're #1.
Yeah, they're very, very good. Once a week I get a chance to come in and talk about just how good Rival are. I know that's a Baskin reference, but I choose to ignore it. Instead, I'll talk about how Rival have a really good chance to get towards locking up first place. Not all the way locked up, but close.
Please do. That would be really great. I'd love for you to do that. Just talk about them potentially locking up first seed.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. This is the week where they can do that. If they're able to take down both SK and LG, then I think that would put them at 14 wins, which is pretty tough for just about everybody else to match. I think Renegades maybe can still make it to that same mark, but for the most part, 14 puts them at a number that realistically is pretty far out of reach for just about everyone else. So this is a pretty big week for them if they are able to grab those wins. And I think it's pretty doable, even though I think they are going into some pretty tough teams. I would describe these guys both as about the same level, SK and LG, right around that 6-7 spot, somewhere around there. And these teams both, I think, present two different challenges for Rival. They're going to have to make sure they're ready to overcome.
So let's start with SK then, I suppose. And what challenge do you think that team's going to provide?
I think that the challenge they have with SK is the early game and then the late game decision making. Neil Ma, in particular, plays very similar to PBM and Aurora. I always mention those three supports as all having that very similar Hercules, Horus, run it down your face early game type style. And because of the way that style goes, it's almost like a coin flip. Whichever one of those supports comes out ahead, that is who is ahead for the rest of the game, basically. So they have to be really careful about that. If that ends up even, though, I think it's going to come down to their late game decision making, because SK loves to bunker down and defend some Phoenixes, and it can be tough to make calls in those kind of situations.
When it comes to SK in particular, I think that is going to be an area of concern. But also, I think that long lane matchup between Zap and Arkil might cause Rival a little bit of trouble, because Zap's been playing very well all year. Arkil has had really high moments.
Yep.
And then some pretty low ones as well.
Yes.
Does that concern you at all?
It does worry me. Zap could certainly get some picks, and he's been willing to do it before. Things like Morrigan or some other aggressive pick in lane where he could start trying to potentially run over Arkil. But it's just as easily that Arkil could potentially end up running over Zap. That's why I didn't make it necessarily one of my headlines, because you're not exactly sure how that lane's going to go. They could also end up not really doing that much fighting at all, and then they just rotate over to fighting who has the bigger impact. I think that this is certainly one of those matchups to watch, but SK versus Rival is a lot closer than the standings might make you think. SK, I keep saying, is a team that playing above their current standing. Everywhere across this map, there's going to be really big matchups.
I mean, Rival has definitely been the team to beat as of late.
Yes.
Alongside Renegades and Splice, I think those are the top 3 teams for sure. But SK coming off a hot win. I mean, the one thing for me is that Rival's playing a vastly different meta than everybody else. They aren't putting any mages over there in the long lane that aren't Kronos or Olarun or something like that. That's pretty traditional.
Yeah.
Arkill's been playing basically nothing but traditional hunters. Panda Cat's been playing a lot of hunters as well. Do you think that other teams are going to adjust to what Rival are doing, or do you think Rival need to adjust to what other teams are doing?
I think it's on other teams, man, to adjust to Rival. Rival clearly are the ones doing the thing that is working. So then that does kind of put that onus onto teams like SK and LG to come in with some kind of game plan. You know, maybe have some other members on the right side of the map early, expecting some aggression from PBM. That's one thing that I'd be looking out for. I think that there's a bit of chance that Arkil and Twig could potentially be openings as well. If you're trying to take down this Rival squad, that might be one more thing to try and keep your eye on, is make sure that Twig's picks prioritize so that he's feeling comfortable in this matchup, because Sam can go off at any given moment, and that could make some really big problems there potentially.
Doesn't look like any of the casters are too worried about that potential, though, as looks like it's all purple in the predictions for Rival versus SK. Luminosity, another team that they play this week, that is going to be their Friday matchup. LG is going to be coming off a tough set one way or another, I think, up against PK. But this is a good measuring stick for Luminosity and on how far they have come so far in their short time as a squad. Where are you looking in this matchup?
Well, this time, instead of the support matchup, I'm looking at kind of what you were alluding to. The long lane could be really important. Joshi, in particular, going up against Arkil. But then also the jungle. How well Lasbra and Captain Twig, and which one of those two has a bit of a bigger impact this one. Because I do think those guys have both really stepped up here for LG. Obviously, adding in Snoopy and Ionic has really helped this squad. But what it's really allowed to do is, I think, for Lasbra to fit right back into the role that makes sense to him. That's where he's from. And if that's going to be the case, if Lasbra's going to be feeling himself, making big plays, kind of making riskier decisions, but risky ones that he knows can really pay off for the team, then Twig's going to make sure that he's on his A game. Which one of those two in a 3v3 has a bigger impact could very well just determine the whole set.
Mid 3v3 is so critical right now in the meta, and Luminosity feels pretty strong right now, but not strong enough to get the many votes from the casting panel. Again, Rival looking pretty comfortable. There are very few teams that I would be picking against Rival anyways. I mean,
Yes.
I don't think this should be a big knock on LG or SK.
No, all I basically did was come in and pick the areas where I think they had maybe a chance, but for the most part, I'm favoring Rival pretty heavily here. The reason I said they need to focus in on Lasbra for Twig is because I think Twig can do that, and I think there's a very good chance that they could come away with both of these games. I doubt that there'll be any 3-0s happening, though. I think this should be close, but I do favor Rival.
Rival looking likely to lock up the first seed if everything goes according to plan. John Finch, thank you very much.
Sure.
It's time for us to move on to the SCL and SML on the other side of the break. A big week in the Smite Minor League. Stay tuned. We'll go over it soon.
Hunter reporting in. Specimen acquired. I don't know why you put such a high price on these things. They barely put up a fight. I'm en route to the drop point for payment and transfer. I want these things off my ship. I don't trust a job this easy. Hunter over and out. Don't keep me waiting.
Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. A big week as we're getting closer and closer to the back end of Phase 2. Only a couple weeks left to go, and only one region determined so far in the Smite Console League. We're going to start in PS4 Europe, as that region is very close still, but not yet determined. Aerial Arise continue to hold on to that top spot, though, and the more we see them play, the more I think that Outcold is not going to catch them. After last week, and it looks like a loss for Outcold Gaming, that looks even more likely. 7-2 now for Aerial Arise, as they are looking like a much, much better team. I think Aerial Arise look better now than Outcold Gaming did during their Phase 1 dominance, and I'm excited to see what they might be able to bring to that placement stage week. Now let's move on to Xbox Europe, the only region that's already determined, and we know who's coming to LAN guaranteed, though we know what's going to happen in NA most likely on the Xbox side of things. We watched Abo's Disciples get a win this week, but we know it's going to be Team Rival representing this region. No surprise, I expect Rival to be a favorite to make it out of those console games and make it into the full placement week bracket. This is a team that has too much experience, I think, to be looking at just making it to LAN. They have to be focused on actually winning games there at LAN. Another experienced team is in PS4 in North America, but it's been tough sledding for Nemesis as of late. And I got to tell you, as much as I've been impressed with Aerial Arise, the way they've been playing, I've been disappointed in how Nemesis has been playing as of late. This region has gotten better, no doubt about it. North America and PlayStation 4 has gotten stronger, but this Nemesis team is struggling to a point where I don't know what's going on with that squad. They are not playing clean Smite right now. They have world champions on their team. They've got guys who have been around for a long time. Matt Coys, Jumpa, Zaxi, Ryan Jarman, and they have too much talent to be 7-2 in that region. I'm disappointed. I'm hoping that they can continue to get better, and they got to get hot, man, because if you would have told me, if you tell me on paper all these console rosters, I think that team has a chance to really give Hype Unit a run for their money at placements. Right now, I don't even know if they're going to make it. They got to really step it up, no doubt about it. Xbox North America, the other region that is not determined, but is determined. It's Hype Unit, man. This team is going to make it, and this team is going to make it into the placement week bracket. I will be floored if Hype Unit are not the definitive best team on console come placement week. They're the best, man. I don't know what to tell you. They've been the best all year. They were the best last year. They might be the best next year, you know? It's just the way it is. It's the way of the road, it feels like right now in Xbox North America. All console roads lead to Hype Unit right now. Now, as for the minor league, things are getting crazy, man. We'll start with Europe because there are still a bunch of teams in contention. Every week, I feel like we get closer and closer to just being like, we'll spin the wheel and see who ends up coming to LAN. This region is a lot of fun to watch, so you should be definitely tuning in on Tuesday mornings. Outcold Gaming, a team that was dead in the water Phase 1 with Pretty Prime and Dimmy and Frostiak. All this talent on this squad, and they were horrible Phase 1. Phase 2, they creeping up, getting better. And all of a sudden you look at the standings and they're in a good spot. Outcold Gaming might be coming to land because Flashpoint drop a set to Exordium. That's right, the one win Exordium has against number 2 Flashpoint. Bad week for them, great week for Outcold. They beat Team Queso. Horizon Union continues to look better and better, but they are not looking like it's going to be possible for them to make it. Just a little bit too little too late on their momentum push, but certainly a roadblock for a lot of these teams. Right now, just based on the way everyone's playing, I'd expect Simplicity and Outcold be the 2 teams coming to LAN. And seeing Pretty Prime and Dimmy and the boys back on LAN, that gets me excited for sure. I'm hoping that happens just to see what they can provide at that international level once again. In North America, things aren't a whole lot clearer. Now, it's a 3-team race in North America instead of a 4-team, but that top 3 is really, really tight. Armada really just blasting into first place, it feels like, with their win. They turned on the Jets and up against Hype Unit and beat them 2-0 in that head-to-head. Sanguine eviscerated Risky Behavior in a set that I'm not sure we should have been allowed to broadcast. That was rough for Risky Behavior, but Sanguine certainly took care of business. Armada's win over Hype Unit, massive, especially in the 2-0 fashion. You can see the game plus-minus doesn't necessarily favor Armada here, but that head-to-head, absolutely critical. So make sure you're watching on Tuesdays because only 2 teams in each region are going to be coming to that placement week LAN. Armada look very likely to do it now, whereas I wouldn't have said that just 1 week ago. That was a big win over Hype Unit for Meerkat and Baskin and the boys. Now let's look at the SPL standings. You can see where all those teams sit. We already have 5 teams qualified for High Res Expo. Splice, the only one not there, but they're 1 win away from qualifying. SK Gaming, if they lose against a rival this week, will be out of the running if my math serves me properly. So that could also clinch Splice their spot. Looks pretty set. Now, seeding, a completely different story. This is going to be very, very different for seeding in just these last 3 weeks. Rival, as we talked about a lot during their setup, looking likely to secure that first overall seed if they can take care of business this week in their doubleheader. They take on SK Gaming on Thursday and then LG on Friday. Make sure you're tuned in early tomorrow, 11 a.m. for that opening game. LG PK is going to be a real blast. Our first look at the new PK roster. See exactly how they're going to do. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for watching here on Esports Weekly. As always, you can keep up to date with everything in the SMITEPro universe at SMITEPro on Twitter or esports.smitegame.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Agro and let me know that you are also upset with John Finch's just awful characterization of our Lord and Savior in the SMITEPro League, Baskin. Of course. Praise be, I suppose. Thanks so much for watching here on Esports Weekly, and we'll catch you next time. Peach it.